Hey everyone, Brian Zane here with my review of AEW Dynamite from December 8th, 2021. This week's show is from Long Island, New York, where no fewer than 3 hometown boys are being represented on the show tonight. A lot of big stuff happening as we are 1 week away from Winter is Coming. It's the final push of build for that on this show. So without any further ado, like what you like, don't be a dick, let's begin. The show begins with the music of Long Island's own MJF, which gets a big ovation from the crowd, but then CM Punk makes his way out instead. The music's cut off and there's no music playing as he makes his way to the ring, and the fans are booing him. Very interesting way to start this stuff off. Punk teasing the crowd a bit from the get-go, saying, "Is that the best you got? No wonder the Islanders can't win any games here." This is one of at least 8 references to the Islanders that are made tonight in some kind of derogatory fashion here. And as the longer goes on in this promo, as Punk every once in a while will circle back to an Islanders dig, Taz on commentary gets increasingly frustrated by this. Punk shows off the revised 4-pillar shirt that has Britt Baker replacing MJF, as Punk alluded to in their promo off last week or 2 weeks ago. He also mentions that MJF says that when he's in Long Island, he'll be over like Piper in Portland, but he says, this is not even Piper in Hell Comes to Frogtown. He attacks the fans for supporting MJF and saying, if this is your guy, if this is the person you call a hero, then you're all chicken shit like he is if he doesn't respond to my challenge. So like, wow, Punk's really throwing it out there. Like, there's nothing subtle about it. At least with Bryan Danielson, when he's been turning the last couple of weeks, there's been subtle things where I'm like, okay, but he's kind of a neutral guy. Like Punk, I think the tone will change from week to week when they're out of Long Island, but I feel that this one was the closest to straight up heel action we've seen from Punk so far in his run in AEW. We saw a little bit of that, I feel, in the stuff with Eddie Kingston as well, his little feud with that, and we're seeing a little bit more of that kind of bubble up to the surface every now and again. So I think once we finally get this full-blown heel Punk, I think this is kind of priming us for that, and I'm really looking forward to that, because when Punk's a heel, I think that's a much better vibe for him than babyface Punk. Then it's time for the Dynamite Dozen Battle Royal, and it begins with an MJF-like hero package, is the best way to describe it. It's a whole cinematic thing of MJF like rolling into his old high school at night, Plainview High School, in a sleek Ferrari. He gets out of the car, and he puts on his old Letterman's jacket, and he walks down the field as the narrator regales us in all of his athletic accomplishments over the years. He says, if you think this man is a villain, you're not from Long Island. And it's kind of like a counter to what Punk said in his promo, where it's like the idea of like heroes and villains is a matter of perspective. Like how was it when Punk and MJF first faced off? It was in Chicago, and then this time it was in Long Island, so it's MJF's turf. So it's kind of tit for tat here, and it puts over all these Long Island references, and the fans are totally on board for that. And MJF is the only person here who gets like an on-air entrance for this Battle Royal, and he comes out with a jacket. Big heroes welcome, big ovation for the hometown boy MJF. One of the more noticeable eliminations that I saw here was Jay Lethal's. He was one of the first ones gone because Matt Hardy like decks him with brass knuckles and just dumps him out. Like, I think it's Lethal's only his second appearance on AEW TV since debuting for them, and so far it's not a great showing for him. We get a face-off with Hobbs and Wardlow in the ring. Kind of a big Hoss fight here. Lio Rush eliminates Hobbs, and then we have this nice story going on where Leo's kind of confronting different members of Team Taz. MJF taking out Lee Johnson and Lio Rush and his own man Wardlow just to kind of get rid of as many bodies as he possibly can. And MJF's reactions to every elimination he does, he just plays the crowd's like, yeah, and the crowd's like, yeah. That was some pretty fun stuff there as well. It's down to MJF and then Dante Martin and Ricky Starks, kind of a 2-on-1 thing. But suddenly Dante betrays his new Team Taz teammate and throws him out, and Taz is just apoplectic the rest of the night. He's bitching about this the whole rest of the way through, how Dante Martin and Lio Rush colluded to screw Taz here. So after that means Dante and MJF are the final 2 people in the ring. That means they're in the finals for next week for that big Dynamite Diamond ring. I love the delayed reaction that MJF has where he's kind of taking in what just happened. He goes, I'm going to go to the corner and pose now because I'm one of the winners. Then he congratulates Dante, very babyface style for him, and he leaves. Goes to leave, then Ricky Starks goes to beat him, Dante up some more, and MJF on the stage thinking about it. Should I go save him? He goes down to save him. The crowd's going nuts for it, and he gets right in Ricky's face. But psych, the two of them just beat down Dante together, and then Punk makes the save for Dante to a chorus of boos as Punk hits Starks with the GTS. A lot of interesting things going on here. These first 2 segments, the Punk opening promo, the Battle Royal, and the way that MJF was treated in both those instances, it's very fascinating. And it's, I think, the closest I think we're going to get for a while to like AEW's version of Bizzaro World, kind of like how WWE treated Canada crowds for a long time, where the crowds there would just like do the opposite of what was kind of expected and what the story dictated and stuff. I don't know how many times we're going to see this kind of role reversal happen with wrestlers, but I like what they're doing here. They're just kind of sampling that and seeing how it works and everything. I think that it's probably the only time we'll see that phenomenon happen on this particular episode, though, because the other people who come out who are from Long Island are baby faces already, so it kind of goes along with that. An 8-man tag match as the Varsity Blondes and the Jurassic Express take on 2.0 and the Acclaimed, who take another shot at the Islanders during Max Caster's opening rap. Good action by everyone here. It's a relatively shorter match. Not a bunch of time here, but everyone gets the chance to look good. Luchasaurus tags in and gets a massive ovation when he does. Daniel Garcia up on the apron to distract, but then Eddie Kingston shows up and yoinks him off the apron. That allows for Caster. He goes for the elbow drop, the mic drop. He misses that, and Jungle Boy catches him in the snare trap for the submission and the win for the good guys here. Then right after the match, we see the camera follow Eddie Kingston backstage. We can't hear what he's saying. He's cutting a promo. He seems very passionate about it, but we can't hear what he's saying. Excalibur has to kind of like relay some of the information to us. Like he's saying that's how it's done in New York. And then like all of a sudden, Garcia and 2.0 beat him and Ortiz up and everything, building more of that feud with Kingston and Garcia, which I'm growing more and more excited for by the passing day, just because that amazing, couldn't find a bigger contrast in style and presentation for those two guys, but that's going to make for a very interesting matchup. FTR and Tully Blanchard cutting a promo backstage. I thought that was funny that FTR now have like stickers with their logo on it on the AAA tag belts that they're currently holding. They talk about how they pretty much have the Lucha Brothers number. The one time that they beat them, like they say doesn't count. It was a fluke because Cash was not the legal man at the time. And they say they're going to cement their place as the greatest tag team of all time when they fight for and beat the Lucha Brothers for the AEW tag titles this Friday on Rampage. Speaking of tag team action, we get the Young Bucks versus Chaos, Rocky Romero and Chuck Taylor. This is a great matchup here. Funny bit early on where Matt does this handspring out of one corner, then stops what he's doing and just kind of a power walk to the other corner to back rake Rocky there. Rocky's taken out on the outside, so Chuck takes a lot of the heat here. We get a couple of interactions with Orange Cassidy and Adam Cole based on what we saw with their interaction last week on the stage and everything. Big hot tag by Romero, throwing a few of those forever clotheslines in. He really has the Bucks on the ropes for a little bit, but ultimately falls to the Meltzer driver, and the Bucks win this very good match. Afterward, though, you see Orange and Adam still brawling for a bit, and Wheeler Yuta comes to make the save, but he's taken out. All the baby faces are laid out, and suddenly the Best Friends music plays once again, and we cut to a shot where they see the white van, and Tony Schiavone, with all the same energy he does to introduce Sting, goes, "It's Sue!" Like, it was crazy just how over they were. And another Long Island boy, Trent, pops out of the van. He's got no hair. He's back from injury. It's crazy, and everyone loves to see him there. He runs in and cleans house and helps his friends get rid of the Young Bucks and everything. A big, moment where Sue's in the ring and Chris Statlander and the rest of the Best Friends are celebrating as the Roppongi Vice theme plays. That was a good kind of like ending salvo after the match itself. And yeah, the match was great, and Trent's return was also very cool to see. I'm very happy to see Trent back, and hopefully he can do more good things to the rest of his group. Ruby Soho's backstage, but her interview is immediately cut short by Penelope Ford and the Bunny. Basically, they tell her that, hey, Nyla Rose is going to give us a chance at the TBS Championship if we help her win, and so we're going to beat you up. We have this 6-woman tag match scheduled for Rampage where it's going to be Ford and the Bunny and Nyla Rose going against Ruby Soho and 2 other partners, but you have no friends, Ruby. You're Ruby solo. Oh, snap. So Ruby starts throwing punches right away, and then Nyla takes her out, but then Ty Conti and Anna Jay come running in with chairs, and like everyone runs away except for like I think it was Penelope who just kind of stands there. It's like she has nowhere to run, so she's kind of and Ty's not going to hit her with it. She just stand right in her face. That part was a bit awkward to me. If you got the chair, you got to use it, or the person's got to run away, and like neither of those things happened. On stage, Schiavone interviews Sammy Guevara, and he is also immediately interrupted by Cody Rhodes. He's still sporting some of the battle scars and the burns from his hellacious street fight with Andrade last week, and Cody is still leaning very heavily into this. I am definitely turning heel, but not yet, and it's going to be very obvious when it happens. But the whole dropping hints of from one good guy to another, he announces he's accepting Sammy's open challenge to the championship on Christmas weekend. And then when he's done talking and wishes him good luck, he almost goes to leave through the heels tunnel and says, oh, wait, just turn around and go through the babyface tunnel. It's not subtle at all, but it's like, I like how they're just planting the seeds for where Cody is still kind of grappling with like, is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? He said he's not going to turn, he's not going to go bad, but like all these things are kind of like bubbling up to the surface like that. I do appreciate how it's like they're hitting you over the head with it, but like it's working for me. Then after Cody leaves, Men of the Year appear. They cut a promo from the rafters up in the nosebleeds, and they complain that Cody is jumping in front of the line because he's an EVP and kissing Tony Khan's ass. They declare that Dan Lambert is returning soon. Great. And then Scorpio Sky telling Sammy to prove himself as a champion, and Sammy does not appear to be afraid of either of them. Seems to be kind of welcoming the challenge. That was a nice segment to tell a few different stories at once here, but the thing I'm the least excited about is the return of Dan Lambert. Just stop wearing the sweatsuits. That's my gimmick, Dan. We get a hype package for the Jade Cargill Thunder Rosa rivalry. Then we've got Jamie Hayter taking on Riho. Jamie's doing Britt Baker's dirty work here. She's here for the explicit intent of just taking Riho out of action because she is the #1 contender. And as they say on commentary, Britt has never actually defeated Riho before in a match. Riho goes for a dive on the outside. Hayter tries to catch her, drops her, and she plops on the floor, but they do kind of recover after that. Jamie takes over. Hayter really throwing her weight around with the much smaller Riho. Telling a really good story here. I appreciate what they do in showing off Riho's resilience and her fighting spirit as she makes her comeback. She hits a big crucifix bomb off the top rope, followed up with a big knee for the win, and then afterward you have Britt Baker jumping her, and they put the lockjaw on her after the bell has rung and everything. I thought it was a great match nonetheless, and I thought it was kind of a cool moment on commentary by Excalibur, where I think Taz says on commentary, what a great women's wrestling match, and Excalibur says, what a great wrestling match, because it absolutely was. And after that, Taz, who's still feeling really surly after what happened with Dante Martin earlier in the show, he announces that Hook will be making his long-awaited in-ring debut on Friday's Rampage against Fuego del Sol, and I think a lot of people are excited about that. People have been very interested in seeing what Hook is capable of doing. He's like the strong, silent type on Team Taz, and they've been waiting a long time to pull the trigger on that, and I, along with many others, I'm sure, are excited to see just what Hook can bring to the table. Then after that, we see Shivani on stage interviewing the Varsity Blondes, but again, another promo is immediately cut off with the lights turned out. They come back up. Malachi Black is teleported on stage to see them. He sprays the black mist in Julia Hart's face. He teleports away, and that's that. I complain about all these quick interruptions, and there were way too many of them, but gotta hand it to him, at least to keep the story moving. Main event time as Bryan Danielson takes on John Silver of the Dark Order, who's another Long Island native here. Silver holds his own early on in this matchup. He's with the takedowns and the kicks and everything, but Danielson eventually takes over. He pulls out the I've got till 5 ref thing. Silver catching a drop kick into a powerbomb, which kind of begins his big comeback after the double down. Silver with a leg lock in, and my favorite part of this matchup is you get the leg lock in, Danielson is kicking him in the head, and John just responds to making silly faces at him, like sticking his tongue out and shaking his head. Like, that was incredible. Bryan comes back and hits him with a Gotch-style pile driver, which seems to knock Silver out. Like, the referee stops the match for that because Silver's not moving, which is pretty scary to see, but you assume it was done very safely. And then afterward, though, Danielson on the mic saying, hey, you know what? I've kicked Evil Uno's head in and Colt Cabana's and Alan Angel's, but I would not be a man of my word if I left tonight and didn't do the same thing to John Silver, who is already unconscious. He's not a factor anymore, but Danielson's going to keep just pouring it on, goes for the stomps and everything, when Hangman Page makes the big save and chases Danielson out and says that next week he's going to kick the cowboy shit out of Bryan as we fade to black. I thought it was a good match, not like a spectacular main event by any stretch, but it continues the story of Danielson and his war against Hangman and the Dark Order. I think Bryan can have a great match with just about anybody and make it tell a great story while doing it, which is what we got with Silver here. Some good solid build, like I said, these last few weeks to really put over how dastardly Bryan has been when it comes to the AEW World title and his quest for gold and everything. Is he a heel? I don't know. Maybe he's a tweener. Maybe he's just a really super serious heel who's on a mission, or a babyface who's on a mission, I should say. But, it's a lot of shades of gray happening right now with some of the biggest stars in the company right now, and a lot of ways it could go, and I'm definitely curious to see where all these threads take us. My grade for this week's Dynamite is a B. Pretty solid show, I'd say. It was definitely unique in a lot of ways. I don't think we've ever seen any kind of crowd dynamic like we had in the first half hour with CM Punk and MJF and the Long Island crowd and everything. That was very different than what we're used to. Cody gets booed pretty much everywhere now, but that feels like not the same thing as what we saw here with Punk and MJF. I think the one thing that I'm really harping on with this, and I will say it every time it becomes an egregious thing, and look, Every company is guilty of doing this, but I feel it's especially bad with AEW, with the whole interview interruptions where the person being interviewed doesn't get a chance to speak. Like, it wouldn't be so bad if you didn't have like 4 of those segments in one show, 2 of them back to back. And I'm going to keep complaining until they stop. Leave your thoughts about this week's show in the comments section below. And hey, who's your pick to win the title match next week between Hangman Page and Bryan Danielson? I want to hear what you have to say about that. And as long as I'm here, I thought I wasn't going to be able to be here tonight to make this message, but here I sit once again, so here I say it once again. Folks, if you're a fan of AEW, if you're a fan of NXT or the rest of WWE for that matter, if you're a fan of Impact Wrestling, if you're a fan of just professional wrestling in general for the last 20 years here in this country, I think you owe it to yourself to show some love to the company that really paved the way and really is responsible for so much of what we see today as we approach Ring of Honor's Final Battle, the end of an era, this Saturday, December 11th from Baltimore, Maryland. It's on pay-per-view and it's on Honor Club. And folks, I will say this again, you have my word, this will be a show you are not going to want to miss. These athletes are going to burn the house down. If this is truly the end of Ring of Honor as we know it, they're going to go out with a huge blaze of glory, and I cannot wait to see what the night will show when that happens. Ring of Honor, Final Battle, the end of an era. Go check it out. Get tickets if you're in Baltimore. Go watch it on pay-per-view or Honor Club. It's going to be a great night of wrestling, folks, and I want you all to be there for a night of history. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.